Thank you everyone for joining us today for this very special program coming to us live from Israel. Just a reminder, please remain on mute, send your questions to us in the chat, and we will aim to address the cooking questions as we go along. And I would like to thank our Beth Tikva Catering Committee for sponsoring today's program in memory of committee member Millie Lev, who passed away in January. Millie could always be found in our Beth Tikva kitchen, and she will be forever in our hearts. I'd now like to introduce our special guests who will be leading today's program. We'd like to welcome back Shawna Goodman-Sone, who was with us in January. Chef Shawna is a graduate of McGill University and a graduate of the Natural Gourmet Cooking School and the Institute of Culinary Education, both in New York City. She has also trained at the Cordon Bleu School in Paris. For the past 23 years, she has been teaching, catering, and cooking for clients in New York, Philadelphia, Toronto, Montreal, and now in Ra'anana, where she lives with her husband, Todd, and 3 sons. Shawna also has a strong connection to Beth Tikva. Her in-laws, Sheila and Gershon, have been members since 1967. And accompanying Shawna today will be Ellie Wertzman, who is the owner and entrepreneur behind the Bat Shlomo Vineyards, a boutique winery in northern Israel. Originally from the US, Ellie made Aliyah to Israel and fell in love with the settlement of Bat Shlomo. In 2010, he partnered with a winemaker from Napa Valley, and together they revitalized the land and replanted the fields with over 15,000 seedlings and a variety of grapes. And they strengthened the community's connection to the land through its wine. And we can't wait to hear more about this spectacular winery. And now I'll hand it over to Shawna and Ellie.
Hey everybody, it's so nice to be back with you, and we are together for the next hour with my very good friend Ellie Wertzman, who, as Gail said, created a beautiful winery just outside of Zichron Yaakov, which is about an hour from Tel Aviv and about 45 minutes from my house, and it transports you to another reality. The views, the air, the history, the nostalgia is just completely inspiring. And what Ellie has done in keeping the history and modernizing it, but also keeping us connected to the land and keeping us connected to community and our roots is really astonishing. So I'm so excited to be sharing Ellie and Bat Shlomo wines with you for the next hour. A big shout out to the catering committee of Beth Tikva, who took me in my very, very early chef days and gave me a voice to pick the shul caterer. And I felt so important and so really connected to the community. And Millie was one of those women who really made me feel at home. Being a Montrealer, moving to Toronto wasn't so easy. And she really made me feel like one of the sisters. And it was in the kitchens at Beth Tikva that launched my career, where I started teaching cooking classes. So a big thank you, a big tribute. And again, I'm really, really so touched to be with you guys for the next hour. We have a really exciting menu that's supposed to make you feel like, I know that you guys are in severe lockdown, as Gail keeps telling me. So I hope this hour just really, allows you to travel with us and to feel, to smell, to taste. And, for all those who were able to purchase the wines from Simcha Wines, crack them open and let them breathe. And, sip away, or you can continue, to order them, or better than that, you can come fly when the skies open for everyone and really plan your next trip here. And my home is open, Ellie's home is open, and the winery is open. And so it all really just tastes better and feels better when everybody is here in Israel. That's what this is about. So I'm going to send you over to Ellie, and Ellie's in Jerusalem, I believe, and he's going to tell you a little bit of why he does what he does every day.
All right, so very good to meet everyone. It's obviously nighttime here, morning there. I hope at least one person has some wine with them, since this is a wine tasting. So I really want to share with you the story of Bat Shlomo. I see a few wine glasses, but mostly on this side of the ocean. Um, I am actually a high-tech entrepreneur, but I'm also a very passionate Zionist, and I have a tremendous love of Israel and our heritage and the history. And as many of you know, the return of Jews to Israel was accompanied with the return of the vine to Israel. And planting vines in the land of Israel obviously go back historically to biblical times, but in modern times, and I'm going to share a little video with you quickly. Um, Actually, I'll stop here. Was really together with the pioneers returning to the land of Israel in the mid to late 1800s, funded by the Rothschild family. And I felt that contemporary Zionism also needed a connection with the land. We've become very much of a high-tech economy, but our love of the land is not forgotten, and that's really the reason we're here. And together with friends and family, this picture really gives you an idea of this first Aliyah settlement of 13 homes. And the summer of 2010, when I tried to bring people back, and I was successful bringing many people back to replanting vines, that had grown here for many years before. And with the addition of technology, I'm going to put you all on a plane to fly over our vineyards. And this is from a drone. And everything you see here has been planted by me and my family. And the young people working there, who I'll tell you about later, are young Israelis who come at least once a week and work in the vineyards with us with a sense of commitment and passion to restoring what was our ancient history and our more recent Zionist history of planting the land of Israel. Shawna, I'll hand it back to you, and then we'll go in at our next stop to talk a little bit about the project and what we're doing.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that I am drinking a Bat Shlomo Sauvignon Blanc. That I'm lucky that there's 1 cup left from my Shabbat dinner. But I also have here Bat Shlomo Chardonnay, which I have to quell a little bit because it was just won a 91. What is it? A 91 mark. I don't even know how to measure the excellence in this, but I know it's super, super high score from Mark Squires, who is from the Wine Center for Robert Parks, and he's a huge wine advocate. So this won mega points. So the Chardonnay is outrageously good. And I was also telling Gail and Doris beforehand, we're in a Shiraz right now, which is like a Canadian Chinook, super, super sweltering hot. So this goes down really nice and smooth, especially straight from the fridge. So just to set the mood of where we're at, I'm in my kitchen in Ra'anana, Israel. And for all those who know and don't know, you can tell from my accent, not very Israeli, but I'm a new Israeli. And so where are my flags? I am a new Israeli, but I hold my Canadianism straight in my heart. And as I said, very attached to Toronto community. But I'm a Montrealer, and we live here with our 3 sons and my husband. And so today's menu is going to be a little bit about tasting, like that you're at the Bat Shlomo winery. We're in the tasting room. So first, when you're in the tasting room, you need some crackers, something, because if you keep drinking this Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc really fast, within an hour, we're going to be giggling together. So let's slow it down the pace a little bit. And these artisanal crackers are super expensive and so easy to make, and they don't need any rolling pin, okay? So for all those who hate rolling pins or haven't looked for their rolling pin during this whole COVID time, or don't even, own one, you don't need one, which is a beautiful thing because most cracker recipes do. So I call these spill the bird feeder crackers because they're made with every seed under the sun. And for all those, the recipes are in the chat box and nothing has been left out. So don't worry about that. I'm just starting with a regular bowl. And most important thing before you start any recipe, preheat your oven to 400 degrees, okay? And that is very important because you don't want to be putting it into a cold oven. And then I want you to be lining 2 sheets with some parchment paper, okay? Very important, easy because super fast cleanup. They can be reused, the paper, but there's son number 3 who just walked in. It is dinner time. So you just want to line both sheets. So what we're going to be adding, it's a super, super easy thing to be doing here in the video. I'm just showing you that. Okay, there we go. We are very live here. So we're going to be adding 1 cup of rolled oats, just regular rolled oats. And we're going to be adding 1 cup. I'm using whole wheat flour for all those who are allergic to gluten. You can be using almond meal, 1 cup of almond meal, no problem. You can also be using 1 cup of coconut flour, no problem. As you can see, this is extremely versatile. And whatever flour you have, just make sure it's fresh. It's after Pesach. You should be all starting with fresh flours. I do have gorgeous fresh flowers, which I must share with everybody. Look at these gorgeous peonies. They're called magical peonies because every day they change colors. So these have only been in my house for 2 days. So speaking of flowers, staying connected, my little ADD here. Then we're going to be adding some sesame seeds, regular white sesame seeds. Notice all the bowls. Israel is very into ceramics and everybody is a potter here, which is fabulous. Then we're going to be adding some flax seeds. And they're not ground up. Nothing is ground up. Some sunflower seeds. So this is, you can, if you don't have some of them, you can double up on the other ones. I also have some pumpkin seeds, so I'm going to be adding some of those. If you have chia seeds, you can add a couple of tablespoons of chia seeds in here. If you don't need to add them. And what we're doing is this is the whole dry mixture. And what I want to be adding is I need to give some flavor. I know the seeds have tons of flavor and they have the crispiness to it, but I also want to give it some Israeli touch to it. So I'm going to be adding a mixture of spices, which is called za'atar. And za'atar is not one spice. It's a mixture. It has sumac in it, it has sesame in it, and it has hyssop in it, which is something from the oregano thyme family. And it's every shuk, every store, every brand has their own variation of what the za'atar will be. You'll find the one that you like. I know in Toronto, the Pereg brand is available in all the grocery stores. It's terrific. But you don't want to be buying spices like this unless you're sharing them with your friends and neighbors, which is a lovely thing to do. Or you're keeping it in your freezer because the spices go bad over time. So if you were in Israel 3 years ago and you remember that spice in your pantry, I would kind of let go of it and plan your next trip to Israel, or go to the supermarket and get your next spices because they lose their strength. They don't go bad, but your cooking will improve 500% by the quality of your ingredients that actually go in. So here's my za'atar. If you don't have za'atar spice, because I know many of you don't, you can also put rosemary in. You could put oregano in. You could put basil. You think about Italy, you can add those spices in. So these are my dry ingredients, and you see how super simple this is. I'm just mixing it up together. Don't forget the salt because everything needs salt because salt pops out the flavor. So I'm going to be adding 1.5 teaspoons of salt and mix that up together. And then this is where the magic happens. 2 cups of water, regular water, doesn't have to be hot, doesn't have to be a special temperature, anything like that. I'm going to be adding a tablespoon of some olive oil and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, which is extra virgin olive oil that comes from the Galil. So I love it. And I love it something that's fruity, that's going to add flavor to it. And then I'm going to be adding a tablespoon of either, this is my Canadianism, I have molasses. You can add a tablespoon of molasses. You can add a tablespoon of Ceylon, which we're going to be using later, or you can use a tablespoon of good old maple syrup. So whatever you have, it's yours. We're working during a time of flexibility, being adaptive, and all recipes can be changed as long as you understand what you're doing and what things are changing. So I'm mixing this up. You're seeing that it's extremely liquidy. You're probably going, there's no way this is going to turn into a cracker. What is she saying? It's absolutely impossible. It's not a dough. It just can't be. Well, promise you, give me 35 minutes. We have our pan. And what I'm doing is just going to take my batter and I'm dividing it into half. And I'm just spreading it. And if you do this and you let it sit for a couple of minutes, it'll even swell like a matzo ball will, right? So if you want, you could do that as well, but it's not even necessary. Just stretch it and make, even if you see some of the paper in between, that is great. The thinner that you spread it, the crackier your cracker is going to be. Nobody wants a thick cracker. You want a dainty cracker, right? And you want to put something delicious on it on top, which we're going to get to afterwards. So here we go. It goes into my preheated oven. And again, make sure it goes onto the middle tray. And like the TV show, look what happens. So it's I try to do my best. You know, we're working in a time limit here. But just so you know, it goes into the oven for 10 minutes. And at the 10-minute point, what I want you to do is to score the crackers. I want you to take out the thing and take your pizza cutter and decide if you want to do boxes, you want to do triangles, you want to do sticks. I don't care what you do. Just make them even because you want them to bake evenly. And a pizza cutter is your best friend for this. And then you continue baking them. And the whole idea is that you saw how watery it was. You need to dry that out. So it starts off at a high oven and then it lowers and it just stays in there and it dehydrates. And then what you have is a ta-da. And the ta-da is, look at it, it just cracks. This is what you want, that they all just separate. And then you have these gorgeous artisanal crackers that you can keep in a container. And you have them for a couple of weeks. They're fantastic. They're super healthy. And you know, you can give them to your friends. It's going to make 2 huge trays of them. And it looks like this on a beautiful platter. So I'm going to send you back to Ellie while I tidy up for our next recipe. And let's learn a little bit more about bachelama.
Thank you, Shawna. I wish I had some of those crackers here. I started to tell you, we started the Bachelama Vineyards really in recognition of the pioneers, the first Aliyah, and taking us on a journey from where Israel, modern Israel started to where we are today, which in my mind is a very accomplished society with a tremendous amount of gratitude for those that came before us and planted the land and built the land, but also with a constant desire to make the country better. My focus on wine has really started with creating the ultimate Israeli wine. And as Shawna mentioned, today was a very, very, very hot day in Israel. When I started, the vast majority of wines produced in Israel were red wines, and quite honestly, the white wines weren't very good. And our focus to make the ultimate Israeli wine was to make a great white wine. We started with the Sauvignon Blanc, which Shawna told me she's drinking. And this really became our flagship wine. Smooth, easy, very perfect kind of for a hot Israeli day. But I'm very grateful, as Shawna pointed out, that today we received one of the highest scores ever for an Israeli wine for our Chardonnay, 91 points from Robert Parker. Thank you, Shawna, there with the Sababa. Now I'm going to tell you a little story. Most people believe that Chardonnay is a French varietal. That's what we've been told, at least. I'm here to tell you today that the Chardonnay grape is actually an ancient Israeli grape. It's made up of 2 Hebrew words, Shar, which means gate, and Adonai, which we all know from our prayers. And really, I believe that if you drink enough of our Chardonnay, you may just have a divine experience. Now, that's not a true story, but most people like it, and I think it's one that hopefully can accompany you next time you open up a bottle of the Bachelamo Chardonnay. So coming back to our focus on winemaking in Israel, it's really been about making great kosher white wines, which we think reflect the Israeli environment, the heat that's here. But I also want to talk about one wine, which got an even higher score today from Robert Parker. We got a 92 for our kosher ice wine. It's probably one of the only ice wines made in Israel. The only two places where they actually make ice wine are in Canada, for obvious reasons, and in Germany. And you're wondering, how do you make an ice wine in Israel? Well, we cheat. So we harvest the grapes, it's Semillon grapes from our vineyards, and then we put them into a deep freezer for 3 days, compress the grapes, and we get a delicious sweet dessert wine. So we call it ice wine. In fact, it's a workaround. As you know, Israelis are very innovative and are very tachlis oriented at getting stuff done. But our approach to making great wines in every category is we'll find a way to do it, regardless of the local conditions. And we're very proud that this wine now represents really one of the finest in terms of the world scene of what Israeli wines have accomplished. And we think that wine is one of the greatest ambassadors for Israel. It travels well. There's a customs agent that usually takes a piece of the action on the way in. But we've been lucky to find bottles all over the world, including in Canada. And I think, in terms of my personal mission, creating great Israeli wines to advance brand Israel to communities around the world, not just Jewish communities, but the communities in general, to discover the great food, the great kitchens of Israel, and the wine that accompanies it has been part of what we've been trying to accomplish at Bat Shlomo. I'm going to hand us back to our kitchen master, Chef Shawna, and continue in a few moments after our next course.
Okay, so I managed to clean up a little bit, which is nice. And the next recipe we're going to be doing is, where do you find your wine in Toronto? That's Simcha Wines. Hi, hello, Norman Stern. It's Simcha Wines, I've been told. So back to our crackers, right? The crackers are delicious on their own, and yes, they're highly addictive, but we're going to like glamour them up a little bit, and we're going to celebrate what Israel food scene is all about. The whole mishkabibble of so many different flavors, people, demographics, generations that come together in this amazing tiny place that has been the center of all food for the food scene, like internationally. I don't know, I'm sure everybody's on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and just Israel is everywhere in the food scene. And it just really is, because it's so experimental, and it really is this mecca of so many different flavors coming together. So this dip is called muhammara, and it comes from Aleppo, Syria. And I recently, just last week, met someone who made Aliyah, who's Syrian, but he came through New York, so a little bit of a deviation. But just to show you just the eclecticism of the Jewish people that are here. Every day you come up. I live in Ra'anana, which is a town of many olim, and that's the word for immigrants. And many of them have English as their mother tongue, so it makes landing much easier. But I don't get bored listening to people's stories about where they're from, and really feeling what it means to be part of a people, and what it means to connect to other Jews from all around the world in this place. That, when you come, and I know many, many of you have been here, that energy, that connection, that feeling, that is, I don't even know how to articulate it, but just being here. And so how I met Ellie was because I lead a women's trip called Shefa, which means abundance in Hebrew. And it celebrates Israel's abundance, whether it's food, music, dance, energy, and it's all about women. And sorry for the men who are online, but really it's a journey for 8 days to, instead of going to India, come to Israel, because Israel has everything. And I collect women who are contributing to society. And I was so taken with the Bat Shlomo story, and how Eli has chosen to, you know, build his whole brand around a matriarch and what women and mothers stand for, and the continuity of our Judaism and continuity of life. And so I was hooked. And so not only is the wine great, the content's great, the connection's great, it's a social business that the kids, high school kids are involved with the picking every week. It's a feel-good sip all through it in. So, okay, that was my infomercial, but I'm gonna move back to my muhammara because you need a dip for these crackers, okay? So the crackers are staged all around the red pepper, which peppers grow tremendously around here, especially in the Arava. And so what I did was I roasted it. And when you roast it, you just blister the skin around it. And then you don't want to use the black because black, you know, things don't look so great when they're black. So I just blistered the skin. I didn't burn the pepper. I just took off the skin. So when you're in the shoppings, you know, when you're buying your vegetables, you don't need the most shiny $8.99 a pound peppers because you're taking off the skins. Okay, so but you want fleshy ones, you want good ones, you don't want thin ones that will just break in nothing. And notice that I just peeled it because it's cold. I let it rest. That's number one, because the steam all gets stuck in the pepper. And then what you want to do is open it up and split it apart. And you're going to use the whole pepper. And if you do, like when I'm doing peppers, I do a bunch at a time and I freeze them and put them in Ziploc bags. You don't need to put oil on them. You don't need to do anything like that. And then you have them and you can make this dip straight out of, you know, your freezer. So I'm just going to wash my hands now. Often what people do is they wash the pepper and they're losing all the juices. So you just sort of take a towel and take off the black, but it's okay if there's still some black. This is life, you know, it's not going to kill you. And it shows, you know, the charriness of it. If you don't want to touch the pepper, they come in jars also. Just make sure you don't get the pickled ones. Make sure you read the label because that could be a very different flavor. So I'm going to be doing it in a Maggi mix, which is the equivalent of a food processor. You need something that's going to pulverize, okay? You can't do this with a knife. So for all those out there, if you haven't pulled out your food processor in a few years or in the mega cleanup in COVID, this is the time to play. And there's no excuses now. So I'm just going to be using the regular steel blade, nothing fancy. And I'm going to be putting my 3 peppers in that I did in advance. And again, you can use yellow peppers, you can use red peppers, whatever. I just don't like green peppers because I don't think they have a great flavor. And then I'm also going to be adding walnuts. And the walnuts are toasted. Walnuts are super, super healthy, guys. And they're fat. They are a natural fat. They make your hair shiny and your skin glow. You're supposed to eat 3 walnuts a day, just so you know. I love them. It gives body. If you don't have walnuts, you could also use pecans. Very versatile. I really believe in substitutions because I rarely have everything, okay? And the best recipes come from improvising. So, and you can't really now go to your neighbors. So let's use what you have and let's keep moving things and not waste things. Then I'm going to be adding breadcrumbs, which are my challah. Every week, I could show you what my challah looks right now. My kids tunnel it, okay? And I'm left with half a challah and lots of crust, which happens to be my favorite. I rip it up. I put it in the oven at 350 for about 8 minutes. Again, I'm drawing it out like I'm drawing out my crackers. And then I grind it in the food processor and I have gorgeous breadcrumbs. And they have no seasoning to them. They just have that wonderful flavor of challah. They don't have garbage in it and extra salt and God knows what other seasonings in it. And I keep them fresh by keeping them in the freezer, okay? Because like flour, bread goes rancid. So you want to keep these things fresh. So, and then this is after Pesach, guys. So I hope you all treated yourself to all new stuff, new spices and everything, because you know, cooking is energy. It's sustenance. It's family time. It's discussion. It's you end one meal, you think about the next meal. So this is what we do. So I'm going to now just put my cover on, and I'm going to pulse it. I'm not going to completely pulverize it, but I need some liquid in here, right? So what am I adding? And I need some more flavor. So I'm going to be adding some of my extra virgin olive oil that I told you that's from the Galil. So I'm adding 2 tablespoons into it. And again, it's not, you have the fat of the walnuts, remember, so you don't need a lot of fat. The mouthfeel is there. We're going to be adding some paprika. Paprika comes from pepper, so it's in line. And the magic is the Aleppo chili pepper. And Aleppo chili pepper is not as spicy as regular chili flakes. So if you don't have Aleppo chili, you just want to use a pinch of your regular chili flakes, okay? Because in the recipe, it says 2 tablespoons of Aleppo chili. That's a lot. So because it's much, much, much milder. So keep that in mind when you're reading a recipe. If you don't have the Aleppo in front of your chili spice, use a pinch of it because it will give tremendous amounts of heat. And then we're going to be adding, because I love lemon. And what I just do is I just take a fork, I stick the fork right in, and I just grab all that juice. You're going to get tons more juice when you use that fork. You don't need any fancy appliances. And this is the lemon is just going to wake everything up. It's a fantastic trick. Whenever your food feels flat, you just put a squirt of some citrus in it or some acid, some wine. You can use that as well. Then I'm also have tahini, and always whenever I'm using tahini, tahini is just made from roasted sesame seeds. Nothing else has been added. It also is a very natural fat, part of your regime of shiny hair and shiny skin. And I'm going to be using a tablespoon of it inside. And that is also going to be adding a really nice mouthfeel to it. Now, another kicker ingredient is pomegranate molasses. And pomegranate molasses is pomegranate juice that has just been reduced. And so it's thicker and it gives a very, very tartness to it. So it's going to all balance together. So if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just put a little bit more lemon into it and it will be fine. I promise you. And of course, a little bit of salt. So I always like my salt to be able to hold my salt because then I can control how much I'm putting into it. You can always add more salt. And especially if you started off with anything that came from a can, if the peppers came from a can, make sure you want to rinse them because they may have salt on them already. And if your breadcrumbs were bought, you want to just make sure the sodium level as well before you start salting. Okay, so we're just going to puree this up. I'm just going to pulse it because I wanted to have some texture. And as they say here in Israel, zehu, that means finished. And here we go. And the gorgeous color of this dip is so, so beautiful. We're a big hummus family too, but having this side by side, this pop of color is really so gorgeous. And it makes a nice amount. Here we go, you can see. And just to show you on the cracker, the crackers are sturdy enough that they're not flimsy. And you go right in and take a bite. So back to you, Ellie.
So Shawna mentioned that our namesake for Bat Shlomo is really about a very special woman, Betty von Salomon Rothschild. And, when people come visit Israel and come see our winery, the question comes up, who was this woman? And the next town over is a place called Zichron Yaakov, which is named for the father of the Baron Rothschild, the patron of the modern settlement of the land of Israel. And I asked the question, who was the mother? And the mother in the late 1800s got a little one road street, which I'll take you on a tour of in just a minute. 13 homes, a synagogue, a mikveh, an apartment for the ritual slaughterer, for the shochet. And I did some research, and I said, who was this woman that raised the Baron Rothschild, who eventually funded the Jewish people's return to the land of Israel? And I discovered a woman who, was a great defender of the Jewish people, who was a great philanthropist, who supported young women's causes, including areas of poverty alleviation, medicine, the arts. And she even funded a maternity ward in Jerusalem in the early 1800s, a free loan society. And fundamentally understanding where the values came from for the Baron Rothschild to go out and fund the founding of the Jewish state I think it goes back to the story of Betty von Solomon Rothschild. I'll share a picture of her with you, if the technology works for me. Let me see. And one more button here. So this is a picture of Betty. I think, through the wine, we're able to share her story, right? A woman who was not recognized by history, whose contribution to the founding of the Jewish state isn't really well known. I think fundamentally it's her values and what she represented that she imparted in her son, the Baron Edmund de Rothschild, that we all benefit from today. And then, as promised, I'd like to see, again, if I can figure out the technology, I'll take you down the street of Bat Shlomo and just walk with me. If you can see the video here. So we're walking down the left street in the late 1800s. Literally homes, in fact, as it was then today. And I stumbled upon this town. I was looking at kids up north for horseback riding club. I said, wow, this place must function not as an old Catholic street, but as one that really breathes the spirit of the Zionist commitment of the eternal land.
Ellie, we can't hear you. When you're playing the video, we can't hear you.
Uh-oh, where'd he go? This is inside the tasting room, and it's all just been recently renovated. It just opened right at Pesach, and it's tremendous. And they also have two simmers as well, so two rooms that could be rented. We can't hear you. Ellie, you got to come back. So,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
All right, good. So I just took you on a tour. There was a great voiceover, but I took you on a tour of Israel as it was in 1889. A single street with 13 homes, 13 Jewish families from Romania who made the pilgrimage to Israel to settle the land, and were given the gift of the privilege of building out the Jewish state. It's 1889. And when I came there and I stumbled upon it by accident 10 years ago, I said, I have a great opportunity to build the continuation of Bat Shlomo, bringing together the spirit of the pioneers, the spirit of the Zionists who came before us, breathing into it the tremendous modern contemporary experience of Zionism through planting vines, as I said earlier, and restoring the original home with an experience for people who come and touch where Israel started, to experience Israel today, which is a combination of a tremendous innovative society, a society that is thriving both locally and globally, and of course wine and the culinary arts. When I was able to tune back in, I heard Shawna mention that we have a guest house, and we welcome all of you to come visit Israel, to stay with us, to enjoy a great meal. If we're lucky, I'll convince Shawna to come cook, and I'll serve wine for you. But it's really a tremendous place where you can experience Israel as it was and Israel as it is today. Shawna, I'm going to go back to you, and then I'll come back with one more chapter.
Excellent. Okay, so we're back in my kitchen, and I'm sure when everybody who's been here, you've been inundated with the amount of salads and the level of just eating locally and feeling that things are falling off of trees and being really in touch with the seasons. And so I really felt it was fitting to add a salad to this, and a really simple salad, but a salad is all about its dressing. And, you know, I had a mother who never bought salad dressing. She said, you know, that was the secret of a chef, is seeing in their fridge if there were any bottles of salad dressing. And, you know, and you realize how quick it is to make a salad dressing when you have delicious olive oil, which is so good for you, and some lemons, a little bit of garlic, some Dijon mustard. That's a typical French, you know, salad dressing, as they say, a vinaigrette. So I'm going to introduce you to one of my simple Israeli like go-to salad dressings. And the beauty of this is that it could be made and enjoyed in your fridge for 5 days. And I love to use old jars because we all have them and we all don't know what to do with all of our old jars. So keep them clean them out. I like to take the labels off so I actually can see what's going on inside. And what I'm going to be starting off with is lemon juice. I love lemon juice, and I'm saying like everybody and their brother here seems to have a citrus tree. And I live in Renana, which apparently all used to be Pardesim with groves. And so they're everywhere. And so you'll get like suddenly at your door a bag of lemons or grapefruits. People are like, they don't know what else to do with it. So there's nothing better than getting a bag of lemons for me, because I think I use a lemon a day, whether, you know, I told you, lemon, like a little zest of lemon wakes up all your food. It's great vitamin C. Apparently you're supposed to wake up and have a little bit of hot water with lemon in it, start your day before the coffee. That's a good challenge to do during lockdown. And, you know, all these little things that, you know, try to set new habits, because apparently it takes 21 days to change a habit. Who knew? So the first thing when you're doing a lemon is that you want to roll it on the counter to literally get the juices rolling, cut it in half. And like I said, I don't use anything fancy. I just use a fork and I put the fork right in and I draw out all that juice. If you don't have lemons and you maybe have a gorgeous orange that you want to use, you can use oranges as well. You can use limes as well. Okay, like anything that's fresh like that. I'm really not into the bottled plastic lemon. That's not so great. So just you want to do something that's fresh, and notice that there's tons of seeds flying, which is normal. This is what it is with the good. So I just have a little bit of a fine mesh strainer, and I'm going to just put the lemon juice right in. Let me just make sure it doesn't go overboard. I take those pits out and lots of pulp. And I have my 1/4 cup of fresh lemon juice. And this was a super, as they say, SCC, a very juicy lemon. And then what I'm going to be doing, garlic is now in season in Israel. And all of this is grown here. None of it's coming from China. And you know, like in Ontario, when the garlic comes and everybody starts making braids out of it and drawing it out, it is so fragrant. And it's amazing to see how soft it is. You can just peel it. It's like a different food. So I like to use a garlic press when I'm using salad dressings, because I don't like to bite on a piece of garlic. So you just want to have it pureed. And but when I am cooking, I like to chop my garlic, because garlic burns like this. And once you burn garlic, there's no return. Call things off now. Start again, because it doesn't get better as it continues to cook. Then we're going to be adding, I told you, my olive oil that I love, and I'm just going to speed up the drip. I took off my fancy slow cap. And of course, a little bit of some salt, and I love to use freshly ground pepper. And the fresher your spices are, again, the more aromatic and more flavorful they'll be. So you always want to be grinding your pepper. Peppercorns are available everywhere. You can even buy pepper in a dispenser that's already to grind. You always want to grind. You don't want to be eating flat pepper. So you just want to shake it up. Label it so you actually know what it is. And then you have your own salad dressings, and you love yourself for having them in the fridge, because not every night has to be a catered affair, okay? So when I'm making a salad, I often think about what's in season, what do I have left over in my fridge? And the beauty of a salad is that it's extremely forgiving. Nobody is measuring how many pieces of cucumber, how many pieces of carrot. You have one piece, half of a red pepper, or whatever. go crazy with it. The one thing that you want to make sure you do though is that whatever lettuce that you decide to use, or if you don't even decide, you can just do a chopped vegetable salad. You want to make sure that it's clean, number one, and that it's dry. If it's wet and you've just sort of soaked it and then you stick it in here, none of the salad dressing is going to stick to it. It's just going to slide right off. And nobody wants to eat a piece of wet, soggy salad. They want to eat something crispy, cold, with a drop of salad dressing, not a soup of salad dressing. So, you know, when recipes often say make the salad dressing and they say drizzle just before serving, very, very important. And go slowly, because you can't take out soggy salad, but you can go slowly and keep adding salad dressing. Or if you want to really be prudent, you can put it on the side, but that's not as much fun because a dressed salad tastes special. It tastes delicious. So I have romaine lettuce that just came from a farm, like in an area called Richepont next to me. That was totally exciting because I got myself a blueberry plant. I am bringing a little bit of Canada into Renana, and it's a big experiment. I met a guy who has created this blueberry plant, and he promises me by Shavuot, I'm gonna have blueberries. So I will keep you posted, whatever happens there. But they have an organic farm, and that's where I got this gorgeous lettuce. And I'm gonna be adding some Israeli cucumbers, which the beauty of Israeli cucumbers is you don't need to peel them. Kids eat them, they just eat them in their lunch bag. It's there's no prep to it except for washing it. And they're available there every day. The stores get new shipments of cucumbers. You can't keep up with the amount of cucumbers here. So the beauty of these cucumbers, as I said, you just wash them and just chop them whatever size you want. Just keep it consistent. Doesn't matter. I'm just doing little chops like that. And the thing, they're not as watery as cucumbers that we have like in August. You know, the seeds are so big that it actually, that drenches the lettuce and makes it soggy. So if that happens, you just put paper towels and layer it. And so it doesn't cause the lettuce to lose all that crunch. You see how it's just so bouncy, which is what you want. And whenever you are dealing with lettuce, you never want to be wrangling it because you want to keep the integrity of it. So you just gently want to tear it and not to pulverize it. So I wanted to introduce you kohlrabi, which is very, very common here. It's a great vegetable, super versatile. But what you want to do is just chop it and just take off its thick skin. I'm going to show you. This thick skin is like, it's kind of bulbous. And what you can do is you can eat it raw. It makes amazing crudité because it's got super, super crunchy. It's kind of like a cross of a radish, but it doesn't have the spiciness of a radish. But it can be grated, it can be roasted. I love it because it looks like an apple, like it's very, very crunchy, as you can see. So I love adding it to salads because I think that all salads should have texture to them. And when you have texture, it makes it interesting. So if you don't have kohlrabi, you have peppers, you have carrots, you have something that gives crunch. Remember, we talked about our crackers. You can put lots of toasted seeds in it, which is great. Toasted sesame seeds, toasted sunflower seeds, toasted almonds, anything that's going to give variety. And then what you want to do is always shake up your dressing right before and then drizzle slowly. And I always find that the best way to mix up a salad, first wash your hands, which God knows we're very trained to do, and just gently toss it with your hands. And again, I'm not wrangling it. I'm just bathing it lightly. And then you have a beautiful green salad that I also have green onions in here, which also just came out of the garden. Like I pulled them right out. So I love when there's a variety of green, like green and just showing like it's ombre of green, which I think is so gorgeous. But you can add tomatoes in, you can add yellow peppers, you can be multicolored. A salad is yours. It's every day you can experiment, whatever you have. If you have grilled chicken from last night, you could throw grilled chicken on, some poached salmon. You just build it as you go. So I'm going to send you back to Ellie to hear a little bit more.
All right. Thank you, Shawna. So I'm going to finish up with really, what it's all about. So I spoke about, making great wines. I spoke about recognizing the history, both of the pioneers and the namesake of our winery, Bas Shlomo. But I spoke about contemporary Zionism, and for me, It is about success, but it's also about social responsibility. And the secret to why our wine tastes so good is that we've adopted a amazing social project called Regavim. Gail actually has a bottle named Regavim. Maybe she could hold that up. Regavim in Hebrew means clods of earth, and the label actually shows clods of earth in the land of Israel. And it is a school for great, amazing, wonderful kids that don't like to go to school. I don't know if anyone's familiar with people like that don't like to go to school. I happen to know a few people that would prefer not to go to school. And when we started the winery, we started with 12 kids. Can you see a photograph now or not? You can. Yeah, perfect. And that's me speaking to the kids. We started with 12 kids 10 years ago with a vision of reconnecting Israeli society to the land of Israel, to do that through youth, to do it through an expression of the love of the land of Israel, the people of Israel, and the tradition of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, and Moreshet Yisrael, or Torah Yisrael. And amazingly, these kids go to school for just 2 hours a day, and they spend the rest of the time working in agriculture with smiles on their face, learning these values and the values of teamwork and camaraderie and caring for Israel. I've had the privilege of building this winery with them, with multiple generations at this point, or years. We're in our 11th year of the program. We grew from 12 kids to 150 kids. And believe it or not, with just 2 hours a day of proper academic learning, their matriculation exams, what we call here Bagruyot, are way above the national average. They enlist into our most elite fighting units. A high percentage become officers and leaders. And for me, this is the joy of the project of our winery, is connecting our society and our youth with the love of the land. I didn't mention earlier, everything we do is with an environmental approach. We're restoring organic approach to working the land of Israel, not using pesticides or poisonous chemicals. But we're also bringing our society back to the land. All over the world, we've outsourced agriculture to migrant workers, to other people. And I think, obviously it's important to provide work for people, but the idea that our society is connected with our land is so meaningful in Israel. And for me, really embodies, what we're all about, the Zionist mission, which is really filled with values. And I just want to take you kind of, as I finish up, a little kind of visual journey of the vineyards, of what an organic vineyard in Israel looks like. It's filled with flowers. It's surrounded by the beauty of Israel. And these are from the last few weeks, right? And the rows here in this picture are kind of as winter is ending, and this growth, which we don't kind of put any chemicals on, grow fully, and we come in with the tractor and we mow in between the rows. And I don't know if you noticed the land to the right, which is barren. That's really the difference between our approach of bringing community in and working the land in an organic way versus people using pesticides, which to me, I hope will inspire other farmers to work the way we work. Shawna can attest to it. The vegetables taste so much better kind of from an organic farm. By the way, if you come visit us in Bat Shlomo, our kitchen is farm to table. It's all grown in the valley. When you eat a meal accompanied by great wine at Bat Shlomo, it's been picked, just down the hill in this valley. And this is from 6 weeks ago. Just as we're coming out of winter, it's me and the team here. The gentleman here, the second from the left, his name is Or. He was in our, which means light, and he really represents the light of Israel. was in our first graduating class when we had two 12th graders and 10 11th graders. He went off to the Israeli army, to paratroopers. He became an officer and a commander. Married young, has a child, and came back. And he's in our fourth year as our vineyard manager, and is working with many other young kids today in the program. This is Ari, and everything we do is really hand done. Ari is my partner and our winemaker, trained in Napa, but very much an Israeli. Made Aliyah right out of high school, came here, has really built this project with me. I think is one of Israel's greatest winemakers. Here's another picture of Or. These are not stage photos. It's really out of a love and caring for the land. And we have built and grown this project, and will continue to do so. And we think when people kind of taste our wine, we hope that they're sipping really the flavor not only of the land of Israel, but the people of Israel. I'll just show you one more picture. This is in the distance, Bat Shlomo, the original settlement from 1889. And I just think to imagine 13 Jewish families on this hilltop before there's a country, before there's an army, the bravery that it took to come here and to establish the foundation that we all enjoy today, and hopefully can kind of taste in the amazing food and wine and our great society. So thank you very much for allowing me to share with you, and I hope you'll all have an opportunity to come visit us here as well. Shawna, back to you.
Okay, well, it's dreaming. It's really, I hope you feel that you traveled for this past hour. I am so sorry. I was so distracted. I forgot to add the silan, which is the date syrup, into the salad dressing, which balances the lemon, okay? If you don't have the date syrup, which is just exactly what they refer to in the Bible when you talk about honey, they're not talking about bees honey. They're talking about date honey. And this is just pureed dates. If you don't have it, you can definitely use good old maple syrup. And it's totally forgiving and wonderful, and it will just balance the acidity of the lemon. So thank you, Simone, for picking up on that. I know she got off, and I want to thank you all for connecting and for inviting me back and for allowing me to connect with all of you back in Toronto. And again, thank you to the committee that supported this program in memory of Millie. And I know we're talking about wine, and the wine is extraordinary and exceptional, but Millie loved her Diet Coke. So l'chaim, in honor of Millie. And that was her liquid gold. And, it's just, this hour has been about preserving the past, but moving forward, and how we build on the foundation of the past. And that's what Israel is. We just keep building, we keep adding, people keep joining, and we'd love to see you here. I'll reiterate what Ellie said, our doors are wide open, happy to bring you here to explore together and to make you feel just as much a part of all this fun. So be well, everybody. I know it's hard. I know it's another, as they say, a seger, a lockdown, but the light is there. It will get better, I promise. And we're thinking about you and praying for more vaccinations and more shipments every day. So thank you all. And
thank you so much, Ellie and Shawna, for today's wonderful program. I know we're all ready to get on a plane and visit you guys. Shawna, if people have questions, they can email me or you.
Yeah, chefshawna@gmail.com, or Gail's the most responsible, organized woman I've ever met. So I know I will get anything Gail sends me. And Ellie's email is Ellie?
ELIE@batshlomo.com.
Thank you to both of you.
And everybody, so you see this gorgeous logo. Look at the woman. It is just iconic. It's so special, and keep ordering it from Simcha Wines, because they need to hear from you that you want Bat Shlomo.
Thank you so much to both of you, and thank you everyone for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you again for sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Uh,